Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
Yes. So,
Thank you.
hello and welcome to today's webinar. Today's webinar is on maintaining peace before, during, and after election 2020. Next month, Ghana goes to the polls. We are going to elect a new set of leaders. And as young people and as women and as people generally, we have a role to play in maintaining peace before, during, and after the elections. And so that is what we are going to discuss today. My name is Feriza Anefi. I'm the co-founder for SheDreams Africa. We have two amazing women with us who are going to take us through the lessons for today. So we'll ask Ms. Beatrice Baden to introduce herself for us.
Also, thank you very much, Feriza, and thank you for this opportunity to come talk about peace and security ahead of the December general elections. My name is Beatrice Baden, and I'm a youth and gender as well as a peace and security advisor. My background is in international security, gender, and then also in peace and security as well. I hold a dual certificate or dual masters in international security from the University of Geneva and from the Geneva Center for Security Policy. I also have over 10 years experience in communications, where I've practiced as a broadcast journalist for over, should I say, 10 years, and then practiced as a public relations person also for over 5 years now. So I have a vast, should I say, experience when it comes to communication, and I'm looking at how best I can blend communications with security, because in every aspect of security, communications play a very key role. Basically, that's it about me. Thank you.
Thank you, Beatrice. Thank you so much. We also have Ms. Rita Siang. So Rita Siang, please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Teresa, for this profound opportunity. I have 9 years experience in the field of education, being in the teaching field as assistant head teacher for 9 years. Then I moved from there to work with a nonprofit organization that is so focused on building educational infrastructure to support rural schools for almost 2 years. And then finally, I decided to move and switch and work full-time for myself as the founder of my nonprofit organization, Feminine Star Africa, which is focused mainly on women empowerment, where we provide scholarship, educational opportunities, skills training, mentoring, and other opportunities for the growth and development of young women.
Thank you, Rita. Thank you so much. So we'll just go straight to the reason why we are here today. So Beatrice, why peace and security? Like, why should we be concerned about peace and security? We are just going to vote. And so why should we be worried about peace? Why should we even think about peace and security?
Well, thank you very much, Teresa, and a very warm welcome to all our guests who are online. Now, this is a very interesting question. Myself, I kept thinking, why peace and security? Why is it that we wait till every time it's election time, and then we keep drumming, there's the need for peace and security?
Yeah.
And I just kept thinking about it a lot, and I said, okay, let's maybe break it down a bit. Let me start by sharing my screen. I tried to do a little PowerPoint presentation so that maybe we get a better understanding of why the need for peace and security. Let's go up. Sorry. Okay. Well, so before we even delve into what peace is all about, let's take a look at the countries surrounding us. We have Togo, we have Benin, we just also have Ivory Coast, just close to us, and then up we have Burkina Faso, we have Mali. Now, if you look at all these countries that I mentioned, they're all Francophone speaking countries, right? And you ask yourself, okay, should there be some sort of disaster right now in Ghana, some sort of violence, conflict? Where do we run to? Where would be our first port of call? Are we very fluent in the language to be able to go to these countries which are more francophone, and would we be easily accepted there? What would be our way, our standard of living in that country? Would we feel more comfortable in this country? If we wouldn't feel comfortable in these countries because we are not really we are not from these sites, then why don't we as a nation maintain the sort of peace, let me put in quotes, peace that we have? So if we say peace, what does it mean? That was one key question I kept thinking about. What does it mean if we say peace? Now, I did a lot of research, and there's no concrete definition for peace. Some would say peace is the absence of war and violence. For others, also, it's a stress-free state of security and calmness. But I ask, is this really peace when we mention peace? And for some also, it's about coexisting in perfect harmony and freedom. But again, I ask myself, okay, does it mean that if you coexist with somebody in perfect harmony, you're at peace with the person?
Mm-hmm.
Or does it go beyond just coexisting with each other? Does it go beyond the absence of war and violence? And I thought that, okay, let's do a bit of breakdown. So I took this graph from one of my lecturers that I came in contact with. He put this together, and it's basically giving us 4 components of what peace basically encapsulates. Now, peace, he notes, is the absence of physical violence. So here we are talking about the absence of war, the absence of killings, the absence of sexual violence and all that. And then he goes on also to say that it's the absence of psychological violence. So if we talk about psychological violence, what are we talking about? Here we are talking about the absence of threats, the absence of intimidation. We're also looking at the absence of harassment, the absence of insults. Now we'll see how this ties into elections. So I'll bring it down again to the elections that we're going to have. And then he also talked about the absence of humiliation and defamation. Now let's come also to what he says about the absence of structural violence. Now when we talk about structural violence, we are looking at the absence of marginalization of a certain group of people. Here we can talk about women. We can talk about the absence of marginalization of young people. Because most often you see that during our electoral processes, young people are not often included in the entire process, from the planning stage all through to the execution stage. And then also women also sometimes, when we look at our electoral processes to date, from 1992 to date, we see that we have less women in our electoral process than men. What accounts for that, and how can we actually balance that to ensure that these marginalized groups actually are well represented at the table, to ensure that the sort of peace that we yearn for as a country, we actually get? And so he says that, okay, if we have the absence of these 3, which is physical violence, psychological violence, and structural violence, okay, and then there's the presence of justice. Now, when we talk about justice, we are referring to the system that ensures that there's that sort of rule of law and accountability. So when we have all these 4, it encapsulates what we mean by peace. So basically, we can say that peace is the absence of these 3, which is physical violence, psychological violence, and then structural violence, and in addition, the presence of justice, which is rule of law and accountability. That is when we can say that there is peace. And then we move on. But for my understanding, I can say that basically peace is a relative condition that involves dynamic processes which enables life enhancing and or enhances lives, and also promotes that sort of survival for citizens, promotes welfare for citizens, promotes development of citizens, okay, and also ensures that citizens within a particular society, and also ensures that these citizens are able to realize their physical, their social-cultural, their mental, as well as their spiritual potentials. within or in a very constructive way. That way we can say that we have peace. Now let's come to the element of security. When we talk about security, traditionally we've been focusing on the protection of states from threats, to the nation's interests. Here we mean that, for instance, take Ghana. Traditionally, if you talk about security, we're looking at the hardcore security, military apparatus, the police and all that, ensuring that externally we are not threatened. So the interest of the nation Ghana is protected from external threats. That was what traditionally security was. But then we can say that from 1994, when the UNDP expanded security, UNDP report expanded security to include human security. And then this time around, when we talk about human security, it goes beyond just the traditional security elements that we see, which is the military apparatus that we have every time parading here. Here we're talking about freedom from fear. We are talking about freedom from hazard impact. We are talking about freedom from want. So here we break it down. We have the health security, we have the political security, we have the environmental security, economic security, among others. So here we are talking more about, in this context, we're looking at the political security, under which we have the electoral process that Ghana is seeking to undergo come December 2020. And so I asked myself, okay, how then can the citizens feel secured in the country? Just recently, we had our police come out to say that they've identified over 6,000 flashpoints. And I asked myself, if you're saying that security gives people that assurance that they don't feel intimidated, they are not afraid to go out there to cast their ballot. If now we are identifying over 6,000 flashpoints, what sort of message is this conveying to the public? How safe are they out there, going out there to cast their ballot? Is the police giving us that assurance that, having identified these over 6,000 flashpoints, certain factors or certain measures have been put in place to mitigate that element of fear, to give people that assurance that, okay, we can go out there come December 6th and cast our ballots without being intimidated, without being harassed, without being brutalized. And that is where also for me, the gender component is very, very important. Can women go out there and cast their ballots without fear? That is one key thing. Do people feel safe looking at what transpired even with the Ayawaso by-elections? I was monitoring the media and I realized that some people within Ayawaso said they feel afraid, they feel insecure, so now they are transferring their votes. In this context, I asked myself, as a nation, are we that peaceful? Are we secured enough to say that we are going into the elections? Have we put in place all the factors and mechanisms necessary to ensure that each citizen's life is protected? Because for me, if we lose even one single life, we are not safe, we are not secured. Now let's look at the issue of vigilantism. Who are the perpetrators of these acts? You go down deep and find that most often it is our young people. It is not the politician who is campaigning or canvassing for votes who goes out there to conduct the acts of vigilantism. No. It is our young people, or it is us, who go on the streets out there to foment all the trouble that we see. Let's see what happened with the Jamestown peace walk. It was supposed to be a peace walk which ended in clashes. In this context, are we peaceful as a nation? Looking at all the elements that I outlined for peace, if we keep having all these clashes, would people feel secured enough to go out there and cast their ballots? I think I'll pause here because and then let my other colleagues go on. Yeah, and then I'll come back later for us to have a lot more in-depth discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Beatrice. Thank you for teaching us about peace and security. Because initially I was wondering, we are just going to vote. Now, why do we need to be concerned about peace and security? Thank you so much for sharing with us. Welcome, everybody. Once again, this is the SheDreams Africa in collaboration with Landmark Security Peaceful Elections webinar. Please, if you have any questions for the panelists, kindly type it. If you want to make a submission, you can raise your hand and then give you an opportunity to make a submission. Thank you so much. So in Beatrice's presentation, she said, can women feel free to go out to vote and all of that? And she mentioned the gender component of peace and all. And so would ask Rita, what do you think that women can do to maintain peace before, during, and after elections this year? Rita.
Thank you so much. I mean, I really enjoyed your breakdown, Beatrice. That was very, very awesome. It was so wholesome. Thank you so much. So I'm not going to give figures and stuff like that, but I'm going to go straight. I want us to first of all look at the consequences of war on women. Yeah. When there is war, the greater population that suffers most is women. Women and girls become like the target for this vigilante groups, for this extremist groups, where they capture them and use them for sex trade, for sex slaves, for so many reasons, for so many purposes. Sometimes they are even used as suicide bombers and stuff like that, not from their own wish, but as just the fact that they found themselves there to be at the disadvantaged point. So women and girls are mostly the highly disadvantaged when there is any form of conflict in any country, for whatsoever reason. That is why it is very, very prudent that as a country, we look at peace from the perspective of the well-being of women and girls. And I'm so happy that Beatrice touched on everything else. And so let me now go straight to the role of women. I think that as women, even basically starting from our own homes, we have the power. We have the men in our hands. Every man out there, be him a politician, be whatever role he's playing, has a woman in his life. Either a mother, a wife, a sister, or a woman in some way, or even your girlfriends. So I want to say that as women, we first have to be at the forefront, be the ones communicating with these men in our lives and talking to them, making them know the essence of peace, why we need to maintain peace.
Yes, and then as a public relations person, also
the elections and after the elections. Sorry, there is a feedback coming, but it's okay. Let's just go on. So as women, we have to make sure that we are the ones that become the mediators between our leaders and also the young people who most of the time are used. Beatrice mentioned that most of the time you don't see our political leaders fronting these fights and stuffs and vigilantism and things, but they are the reason behind it. Sometimes they even fuel it with finances, with money. They push people, these young people, to go out there to do all these things. So I think that as women, first of all, we have to ensure that there is peace by talking to our leaders, making sure that the people who we have nominated, whom we have given the power to lead us, understand that as women, we have a voice and they must listen to us. They cannot do anything on their own, like leading a country on your own and then just taking the well-being of women out of it. Women must also organize themselves on the grassroots. I'm talking about our small communities, our small villages. These are the places where these politicians come to ask for our votes. When they come there, let us drive it home to them. Let them know that we are giving them power to lead us but not to kill us. We are giving them power to lead us, but not to front things that would cost us our lives. So as women, we have to speak to peace, not just speak, but also act. Because sometimes the way you even present something to somebody who is in a different political party orally, how you voice it out might even prompt an anger from the other person. So we as women from the grassroots have to speak up. Every woman has, the role of a mother. So as mothers that we are, let us begin to demonstrate our motherly love, our motherly characteristics. I know that there are so many women in political positions in our country, Ghana, MPs, ministers, and so on. Sometimes it baffles me, especially when I remember one of is it Ayawasu or so, that where I realized that the conflict was emanating between a woman, and a man. Then I'm like, so what's going on? Where is that motherly love? Where is that motherly conversation that we could have? Where is that attribute and that characteristics that we have to calm tension? So as women, we have to revisit those characteristics and then put them to play when it comes to how we relate and how we work with other people as women holding political positions. We don't have to forget that as we are holding these positions, the younger women out there, the girls, are looking up to us. They are aspiring to become us. So if we are rather the ones leading the fight, leading or be the ones or the reason why this conflicts are emanating, then what are we doing? That's a question that I want us to ask ourselves. I know that we are an agent and we could be a great agent of stabilizing any form of conflict. So in situations, so I'm talking to this issue before, during, and after the elections. So now let me go to during, so that because I have just 10 minutes and I have a lot of things that I want to do. I'm trying to squeeze this in. So let me just touch on a little more of before. So women, it's also very important that we become the voice of reason. Okay, we have to be the voice of reason. Most of the times, we have to speak up when something wrong is happening. We don't have to just see it and then be on the fence and say that because it's not affecting me personally as an individual, I will not speak to it. So everywhere we find ourselves right now at this time that we are working towards having our election, I want us as women to be the voice of reason, the voice that other people listen to and they calm down, the voice that when there is a conflict emanating, they listen to, and then there is everything begins to make sense to people. Now let's look at the role of women during the election. What can we do as women? I know that during elections, women are given roles to play at polling stations. We all know that, right? So if women are given roles to play in polling stations, I think that our presence alone and the characteristics that I mentioned that we have as mothers, dignity, calmness, not taking sides. At that particular time that there is election going on, that's not a time where we have to portray or display our political colors. That's not the time. But it's rather the time that we have to put our heads together and make sense and reason from what is happening. We should know that we are in there trying to elect a leader who would lead us in the next 4 years, either into doom or into success and all the beauty and all the great things that we are looking for. So this particular time is for us all to work together as a team, but not work apart or become divided. I am stressing that we have to allow democratic process to just flow. It's a democratic process. So as women, let us support this democratic process to flow instead of being the ones rather agitating and being the ones rather pushing and causing any cause of any sort of conflict. Another thing I want to add is this. I mentioned we being the sort of controlling and guiding our children and our youth, our husbands. I will add it here again, and I'll stress it here again, because every person even coming out there to vote is coming from a home. Before they even step out, please, let's be the voices that they listen to first. Let's talk to them. Let them know that if they step out of that house and do anything that causes any conflict, they should remember the families they have back at home. They should remember that. Because when you look at countries like Yemen, Libya, and so many other countries, what is happening? It is very obvious that it is the women and girls, women and children who are struggling and are suffering most. They are so disadvantaged. Excuse me, when I even compare our just our normal life, where a woman wakes up, you know, you bath, you eat, and a man wakes up, bath, eats, and does that. The basic things that we need, basic needs. A woman's basic need is so complicated compared to a man. So even if you find yourselves in how do I call it? When you find yourself as a refugee in a camp, as a man, you wouldn't have that much struggle. But women, we have too many needs. We have just too much needs to even find ourselves there. So let's take caution and learning from other countries that have gone through this kind of conflict and are suffering the consequences today. Let's take clue from them. Let's learn from them so that it would be something that we would not want to go to. So as our young men, even young women, step out of our homes, let's be the ones to educate them what to do, what not to do during the elections. So to talk about the final part, which is the role of women in promoting peace after election. When election is done, what are we looking for? Whoever wins, what we are looking for is a united country, a country focused on one vision, a country focused on growth and development, a country that is looking for success and the well-being of every other person. So with that said, I want to add that whoever wins, we must be ready to accept and support that person. That is not a time where we have to start saying this person has done this and that person has done this, and then it will be bringing in tensions. Because when somebody loses an election, even when we talk about our school university experience where you lose an election, you know how the pressure, you know the sort of pressure we go through, and you know the sort of people will tease and tease and tease. Okay, so when we look at this, is a whole national thing. Sometimes I feel like Ghanaians, we take things for granted. Some things that are a very serious issue, we make so much mockery out of it and play with it and joke with it to the point where somebody can just get angry to the extent that out of something that could have been avoided. Okay, so when election is over and it happens that a particular party loses, please, let us just pick the pieces and build our lives together and hope for the next election and hope that we might win the next election. But for those of us who have won as well, let's not take this as I will show them we have won. So no, and all those, sometimes I watch videos online and things that we create out of things that are very relevant and very important and pressing. And I'm like, are we serious? Are you kidding? So please, when this happens, after election, let's take everything that happens seriously. Let's look at it from the perspective of citizens who are looking for a country that would promote their growth and support whichever political party that wins. Let us also calm down tension. When somebody is frustrated already and you come in to intensify their frustration, you are leading them into causing or bringing up any conflict or anything. So please, let's do that. So I think for now, I would end here. I will end here by saying that women have so much role to play. We should be the voice of reason. We should be that motherly personality with dignity, without calmness, that when there is storm in any camp, when you step there, people look up to you and listen to you because they know there is something valuable going to come out of your mouth to calm tensions. So I think that's what I'll say for now, and I'll add more as we go on.
Thank you so much, Rita. She says we should be the voice of reason as women, and then we should have that motherly personality. I think that's a great thing for us to take along with us. For the participants who just joined, if you have any questions along the way, please type in the chat session. And if you want to add to anything anybody is saying, please raise your hand and then we'll give you some time to make your submission. In the meantime, too, you can tweet or post about what is happening now, and then use the hashtag SheDreamsVoices, SheDreams Africa, Landmark Security. I'll type the hashtags, and then you can tweet about whatever you are learning or you are hearing from the presenters online. You can post on Facebook, Instagram, anywhere, and then people can join in the discussion. Thank you so much. And then we'll move to our next speaker, but before he starts, I'll let him introduce himself briefly, and then he's going to take us through what our role as young people. I see a lot of young people have joined, and even if you are not a young person, you have a young person around you. And so it's good that we learn this and then we teach our young ones. And so I'll invite Mr. Isaac Boyson. He would introduce himself briefly and then go ahead with his presentation. All right. Since we can't hear Isaac, we'll let Beatrice go ahead with her next presentation. She's going to talk about how we can maintain peace and security generally. And then when she's done, we'll get Isaac back to make his presentation.
Okay, thank you so much, Teresa. So sorry about Isaac. Okay, maybe you can reposition yourself and then join. Okay, so thank you so much to you all again, and welcome to those who just joined us. I would want to quickly share. My presentation again. Okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Yep, so that's what we have here. Okay. So I was asked to look at
you can give a brief recap before you go ahead with the next.
Okay. So just by way of recap, let's see. Okay. So I just did took us through a bit of what peace is, just to get us understand when we say peace, what it all means. And I asked 3 basic questions as to whether peace is just about the absence of war and violence, or whether it's just about having a stress-free state of security and calmness around, or whether it's just about people coexisting in perfect harmony. And I took us through basically 4 key areas that encompasses what security or what peace is about. One is basically the absence of physical violence, also the absence of psychological violence. So physical violence, we're talking about war, we're talking about killings and all that. Psychological violence, here we're looking at intimidation, we're looking at threats, and then structural violence, we're looking at marginalization of a section of the populace, such as young people, such as women, from the electoral process. And here I mentioned that young people play a very key role in the electoral process. If you look at the demographic, we have a very, very youthful population. And so if you don't engage the youth in the electoral process, and they have their own grievances, they have expectations, but you don't engage them. During the electoral process, if the technical hitches with the electoral body, if I would say, which here would be the Electoral Commission, they might use that as, let's say, a foundation to trigger trigger violence or conflict, way to express their grievances or their agitations because they have not been a part of the electoral process. So young people here who also make up a part of the marginalized group, it is key to include them in the electoral process. And by that way, we can have peace. Also, there is the absence of structural violence, which is the marginalization. And then where there is a presence of justice, rule of law, accountability, that way we can have peace. And so I went on to also talk about security, which I mentioned that when we talk about security, it's not just about the traditional security where we have the military, we have the police, but it encompasses other areas such as human security, which the UN DP reports 1994 reports outlined. We have political security, we have environmental security, we have health security, among others. So this is basically what security is about, and not just the hardcore military security or protecting the territorial needs or interests of Ghana or other countries from external threats or influence. And so we go on, and I asked how do citizens, or how can citizens feel secured in the face of events such as the Ayawaso West Wogon electoral violence, such as the Jamestown so-called peace walk, which turned out to be, I would say, a violence walk, if I should put it that way, because it didn't emanate into the peace walk that they wanted, but it turned out to be a clash walk, if I would say. And then now that the police says that they've identified over 6,000 flashpoints, what does it mean to us as a nation, as citizens? What does it mean also to us in terms of peace and security? And so now we move on to my next aspect, which talks about the role of government and 4 other agencies or 4 other organizations that were also identified for me to talk about. So with government, the key component for me is that every government to have a peaceful and process, and to have that sort of security that you need, or security that you need in your country, then there should be an all-inclusive electoral process. So here, when we say an all-inclusive electoral process, we are talking about an electoral process that, sorry, let me just go back one. Okay, so we are talking about an electoral process that does not segment, okay, but an electoral process that actually addresses the needs of all the parties involved. Here we are talking about political parties, we are talking about civil society organizations, here we are talking about the clergy, we are talking also about the young people, we are talking about gender mainstreaming, because let's not forget that women most often, we say, are victims of conflicts. But let's not forget that women are also sometimes the perpetrators of violence. So if women who are also sometimes the perpetrators of violence, if they are not included in the electoral process, then there's a gap. We're also looking at how we improve the security apparatus in the electoral process, so that the security coming into the electoral process know that they are coming to offer a certain good to the populace, and not just to, let's say, engage the populace in, or the citizens in any form of brutality, but then they're coming to offer a service to citizens where citizens will see them as their friends, as a part of the community, but rather would not be afraid of citizens. So I'm saying that an all-inclusive electoral process creates that sort of transparency that we need for the process, from the beginning of the electoral process, during the electoral process, and after that electoral process. Now, when there's an inclusive electoral process, it gives room for accountability. It gives room for trust in the process. Then our people do not see the process as being untempered with, because they know that they were part of the process right from the word go. So that there's little room for doubt, which breeds the grounds for mistrust and for violence to erupt. And also I'm saying that there's a need for the citizenry to be educated on their civic rights. Let's not forget that when you talk about elections, it is the civic right of everybody to actually cast their ballots. Elections play a very important role in our democratic process. It gives the citizenry the opportunity to determine who they want to lead the country. So it is important to educate the citizenry on their civic responsibility. Now let's also not forget that in educating the citizenry on the electoral process, they need to understand what some of the triggers of electoral violence are. So that if I'm going to cast my ballot and I see certain things, I can immediately say, no, this thing might not augur well. Maybe let me alert a security officer nearby to come and calm the situation. Or let me call on the electoral commissioner, the electoral officers within that vicinity to come in. Because if I take the law into my own hands and I feel that, oh, there's something going on here which I don't deem it as being appropriate, so I also revolt, then it can turn into something else. I remember very well during, I've been on the ground to monitor, to actually report on our elections. Election 2008, I was on the grounds. 2012, I happened to have found myself in the northern region. And funny enough, that was my first time actually being to the north. I didn't understand the language, but I was supposed to identify the elections. And it was very interesting where there were electoral violence that erupted within some of the areas, some of the flashpoints that were identified. I remember one key example where there's an area called one flashpoint called, was it Creek Park or Creek Park? I'm not sure if I got the name right, but there was some sporadic violence that was there. And we had people firing guns and all that, and everybody was running out of trying to find safety. So I asked myself, as a government, what measures have been put in place to educate the citizenry on electoral violence? And this is where we need the NCCE, National Commission on Citizen Education, to do a lot more. I think that maybe right from the lockdown period, we could use state television to do a lot more public sensitization on the need to avoid some of the tensions or some of the acts that erupt into tensions that further lead to electoral violence. Also, I'm saying that we need to have a very transparent, free and fair process, and that the onus lies on the Electoral Commission. Shouldn't give any room for doubt, which will breed misunderstandings, which will breed contempt, which will breed grievances and agitations. And then the gender component is very, very key. Our young people are also part of the gender mainstreaming. The youth, our boys out there, because sometimes some of them feel that they've been marginalized. Some of them feel that their voices are not heard. So in trying to make their voices heard, they take to the streets. And then again, when you look at the issues of vigilantism, sometimes it's a way to show their manpower, because they feel that, hey, they're not being heard, they're not being used for anything, they're unemployed. So what can they do? If they feel that, oh, somebody's coming to give me a few CDs or a few coins, well, let me show my materialism or my, sort of elements. So we need to see how the gender and then our women. I like the fact that our women have been introduced in the electoral process. But for me, it's not just about having our women go out there to cast the ballots. Throughout the process, the language that we use for our women, is it demeaning? Does it discourage women from actually going to the polls, from actually being a part of the electoral process, from actually vying for electoral positions? Let's take a look at that. So government needs to educate the citizenry more on language that we use that tends to discourage women from coming out. Now, most often, if you look at our electoral process and the language, politics of insults that we have, if a woman tends to contest, she's tagged in a certain way. But should that be the situation? Let's embrace women and encourage a lot more women to come out. And that is where I think government needs to do more. And then also, let's avoid the process of intimidation. If you look at, let's say, Ivory Coast, Laura Gbagbo, and Ouattara, sometimes if you look at government in power, they tend, because they are in power, they tend to use the military force to intimidate opposition, as what is happening currently in Uganda. We have some members of opposition being imprisoned. Bobby Wine is a clear example. He's aspiring, and the government in power uses its authority to intimidate the others, preventing them from coming out. But if we want a very peaceful and safe electoral process, then we should have one which is devoid of intimidation. Now let's move on to political parties. What can political parties do? For me, I'm very passionate about the language. Language is very, very key. What we put out there, what we alter out there is very, very key. It can make or unmake a nation. If our politicians go on their campaign trails, what language do they use? Is it abusive? Is it threatening? Does it incite the young people to go out there to foment violence? We need to be cautious of all these things. And I think it's about time that our political parties commit voluntarily against personal attacks and abusive or insightful language. I like this so much when recently I saw in the media some of the politicians coming out on our screens to say that I commit to peace, I commit to peace. But for me, it is not just about committing to peace. It is about putting into action what we say we are committing to. So if you're a politician and you're committing voluntarily to against personal attacks, against insightful language and all that, it is not just about saying it, but let our actions speak louder. And then also let our politicians, I think it's about time that they take responsibility to prevent violence, especially during campaigns. If your political party engages in violence, the candidates should take responsibility for it. The political parties should be made to take responsibility for the violence that erupts, because we can't and we cannot afford to trade the peace of the nation for any other thing. And then also let's avoid abusive language. Our politicians and our political parties should simply avoid abusive language. You can actually have healthy discourses devoid of abuse, and you can put across your message that you want without attacking any personality. Just put out the content that you want to share, the message that you want to share. Just put it out there without inciting people to violence. And then also the use of macho men, vigilantism. You know, it's for me, it's sad that we can't use our young people for productive things, but we use them for macho men for vigilantism. And I keep wondering, why should I allow my brother to go on the streets to foment trouble when he can use his skills, his talents for something more productive that will bring a lot more benefits, not just to himself, but to our nation, Ghana? It's about time that our political leaders rethink the use of our young people, especially for vigilantism and as macho men. Because believe you me, today you might be using them as macho men, as vigilantes. But when you get into power and you are not meeting the sort of needs and demands that they want, they will now come back and retaliate. So let's not forget, we need to take very cautious measures and to take and be very strategic in what we do. And then for me, I always say dialogue. If you're able to communicate, if our political parties have issues and they call themselves, if the government in power does something you are not happy about, engage the government. If your other opposition party does something you don't like it, engage them. That shows the level of maturity. That is what I believe. It shows the level of maturity if you can use dialogue to address your grievance instead of using arms to address your grievance. And also we should avoid the politics of monetization. Now, you know, it's so interesting that you go on the field and you hear the electorate say during electioneering period, election time is a cocoa period. Yes, that's what they say. Because they feel that when people come to them to canvass for votes and they give them the go ahead, they repose that power, that authority in their hands, and they're not able to meet their demands. They just wait patiently for that 4-year period when they know very well that they'll come back to their doorsteps to canvass for votes. And that is why we are seeing this whole issue of monetization. I think it's about time that we stop the whole process of monetization and engage in an electioneering or an electoral process where we discuss issues that are issues-based. That is what for me is key. We should have an issues-based discussion and not be buying votes. It doesn't order well for us. Let's see. Okay, the media, my people.
Yeah.
Yes. You know, I'm passionate about the media because if we look at, we can make and unmake a nation. We can destabilize a nation. If somebody should go to on TVs right now and say there's a coup, you can imagine the sort of chaos that it will create. The media facilitates information sharing during, before, during, and after elections. They give us an idea of who our candidates are. They give the platform to the candidates to share with us what their visions are for the nation. Now, what do we expect from our media? We want a very credible, objective media that is non-partisan, that does not incite violence. We want a media that does not engage in sensationalism, but the media that actually puts out the facts as they are. A media that is transparent, that engages in credible reportage, that the people can trust in and know that if this particular media house is giving us information, that it means that the information we have is credible and we are at peace. And then also let's remember that there's something called freedom of expression. It is our fundamental right, and it is very critical during electoral processes. But what sometimes we as media personnel we forget is that that same freedom of expression, which is a fundamental right, comes with responsibilities. Yeah. So you don't just go out there and make pronouncements because you have the platform. Sometimes you tend to be carried away because you know that some people say media for the strong. It's not about media for the strong. Listen, we have the platform, but it is to be used for the appropriate issues and not to foment trouble, not to incite violence. Media is supposed to be used to enhance the development of the nation. It is to be the voice of the voiceless. Media is to serve as the voice of the voiceless. So in the hinterlands where people's concerns and grievances are not being heard, that is where we need the media to project their issues, to draw attention of government to the needs and concerns of these people. Also, we need a media that avoids inflaming already tense situations. Sometimes we see that the situations are very tense and dark, but that is where you see the media, some media organizations, inflaming the already tense situations. I think it doesn't help an electoral process. Where we have gotten to as a nation, we need a much more developed and advanced media. We don't need that sensationalism, no. We need a media that is fact-based, that is non-partisan. And then also, one other thing I've observed is, because now we have a lot more media houses that are partisan or are related to political parties, they are being attacked. There are a lot of attacks against media because people are losing trust in the media.
Yeah.
So if we don't come out to be credible, I am not saying that because media houses and some media houses are not being credible, it means that people should attack them. No, that is not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is that as media, let's put out the sort of code of ethics, the professionalism that we as media personnel have committed ourselves to. And then also to put Ghana first. in everything that we do, we have only one Ghana. So Ghana should be first in our media reportage in everything that we do. Let's see what we have next. Okay, the clergy. The clergy are a group of people I would say we respect a lot. If you go to our Muslim communities, we respect our imams, we respect our Muslim leaders a lot. If you come to the Christian religion, it's same. And it's so interesting how both of us are able to coexist peacefully. Some countries I've been to out of Ghana, and some people ask me, how possible is it that in Ghana both Muslims are able to live together? And I tell them, look, my landlord is a Muslim, I'm a Christian, but we live in harmony. We live at peace. We chat. Even yesterday, we were just chatting about the US elections, and we're having a good time with it. Now, our clergy, because they play a very key role in our society, they need to be non-partisan. We shouldn't see religious leaders being partisan. It breaks society. Because if our religious leaders who a lot of people look up to, they are sort of the God figure on earth. If we look up to them, and they're supposed to be the unifying element, if they tend to be partisan, they break the fiber of society. Our religious leaders are supposed to unite us all in times of tension. They are the ones supposed to quench that sort of fire when there is, that intense fire. They're supposed to calm tensions, calm the nerves that are exploding, but not to be partisan and not to inflame the tense situations. And they are also to teach us the moral truth when they see us going astray. So if they see party A going astray, they see party B going astray, because they are non-partisan, when they call party A and party B to the table, they'll give ear to them, they will listen to them. But if they come out to be partisan, then I'm sorry, our clergy, our religious leaders will not be listened to. And so I conclude by saying that one Ghana. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Beatrice. We are really, really, really grateful for such an insightful education. We have a poll. We have a comment first, so I'll just read that first, and then we take the poll. Linat says, she says, women politicians face a lot of intimidation across the globe. And I think it's time we educate our citizenry to know that regardless of one's gender or ability status, they shouldn't be discriminated against. Very educative, Beatrice. Richmond says, well educative. And then Princess Lee says, most media houses are politically affiliated now, and it's going to be difficult to have them discuss passionately about developmental issues. And then one Ghana, beautiful message. So one Ghana, everybody. We're going to take one poll and then we continue. Oops.
Okay, I think whilst you work on that, I want to add to Beatrice's point.
Please go
that
ahead.
Was fabulous. Okay, good.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I want to share a personal experience. I worked in the media for 6 years as a radio show host, and then it was election. That day was election day, and we were asked to be at the radio station, coordinating with those on the grounds. And we were there, and this man just walked in, blasting us. Why are you on air telling people to go out and vote? Can you imagine? And then I gave it back to him. I told him, hey, I am here. I've been given a responsibility. I've been given a job to encourage people to go out there and vote. I didn't say vote for who or vote for. all I'm trying to say is this. People who have media stations that are affiliated to specific political parties begin to become more partisan. That particular man who walked in that day was affiliated to a particular political party.
Mm-hmm.
And it was assumed that because we were on air, calling people or encouraging people, doing our normal radio show, liaising with our other colleagues, they were giving information. People are not coming out in their numbers. And we are like, go out there and vote. So he was thinking, because they own that radio station, we are propagating the other political party, which is not true. So just as you said, we have to be very objective as media personalities. And also, just as you said, we should not rather add more fuel to the fire. When there's already tension, we shouldn't add more.
Yeah, thank you. All right. So I just launched a poll. When is Ghana's general elections? Since we're talking about elections, let's test our knowledge on when is Ghana's general elections. Let's see who knows when it is. Please, all participants should cast their votes. Are you done voting? All right. It's 7th December. Let me share the results. Oh, so we all know we are voting on the 7th of December 2020. And so save the date and then prepare to vote if you are 18 or above and have registered to vote. It's your right to vote, and do so in a peaceful manner. Everything we are learning here is for us to conduct ourselves and for us to teach others how to conduct themselves before, during, and then after the general elections. So we have a contribution here by Daniel. Daniel says, for the panelists, insightful contributions from Beatrice and Rita, but I was expecting a lot more in terms of data on effect of electoral violence and its direct and indirect effect on women and children. With this information, participants could share same with our network of friends with the aim of achieving women's participation in advocacies aimed at preventing such violence. So that is Daniel's submission. So, yeah, would you like to address it?
Okay, I think I could. I don't know if Rita would want to say something, or Rita, you want me to say just?
You go ahead, and then I'll add on.
Thank you. Then, unfortunately, I don't have data here, specific data to give to you. But if you look at our current parliament that we have, look at the number of women we have in our parliament. The number of MPs we have, I think about less than 40 women in our parliament. And look at how, as against the number of men that we have. That is one key example. If you're talking about gender mainstreaming, okay, why are a lot more, this time around we've seen that 2020, there are a lot more women coming out. Maybe something is being done right, which we need to encourage. Okay, but I think we need a lot more women than we have currently. Now, if you talk about children, let's take Ayawaso West Wogan, for instance. If your parents in Ayawaso West Wogan, where you had this electoral violence, December, would you feel comfortable before 6th or 7th December to allow your child to be going out free of, free without care? If, let's say, now your child is able to move around without you really paying much attention. On the 7th of December, even 6th of December, would you feel comfortable allowing your child to go out if you are to be in Ayawaso West Wogan now? Or if you're to be in, let's say, Western Togoland, Would you feel comfortable? On 7th December, can you send your child out to go and buy the salt that you used to? These are questions that we need to ask ourselves. And even you as a parent, on the 6th of December, on the 7th of December, would you feel safe just going out there to cast a ballot if you're to be in Ayawasu, West Wogon? And if you should have, let's say, a parent who is about 60 or 70 and would want to go out alone to cast their ballot, would you feel comfortable allowing them, if you're to be in Ayawasu, West Wogon, to allow them to go on their own? If they can do that, would you feel comfortable allowing them, knowing that there's a tendency that violence can erupt? So these are the issues that we're saying we should ask ourselves. As citizens, what roles can we play in ensuring that peace, we have peace before, during, and after the elections? Are we holding our people accountable? Are we asking our government, are we asking questions to, are we putting questions to our security apparatus to ensure that, okay, you're saying that you've identified 6,000 flashpoints. What mechanisms? You are deploying police, okay. We've seen now situations where these macho men can walk into police stations and confiscate their arms. That is the trend where we've gotten to now. So are we comfortable? Are we really assured that the security personnel who will be deployed are even safe themselves? Because we've seen situations where police run away and leave their arms if they are being attacked. Okay, so are we as citizens really assured that we are safe and secured and can go out in our numbers to vote? Or are some people, are some parts of the are some sections of the population saying that, look, because of what the recent trends you're observing, we would rather stay in our homes and not go out come December 7th. Remember that it's our civic responsibility. It's a democratic process. It's our voices. It's our thumbs that we're going to use to endorse whoever we want. So we should be able to come out in our numbers. So if you're going out there and we'll be beaten and we'll have to be dodging guns, we have to be dodging bullets, are we safe? That is the question we should ask ourselves. Rita, maybe you would want to add more.
Yeah. So the question, if I really get the question properly, he means the direct and indirect effect of this conflict on the lives of women and children, yeah. Right? Women and girls especially. I would say directly, it affects physically. If there is war, nobody is safe. Physically, you are not safe. You can be hurt in any way, gunshots, any way, bomb, anything, depending on the gravity of whatever war or whatever conflict is happening. So at that time, physically, women and girls can be affected. Mentally, because nobody would be at peace. Mentally, psychologically, women and girls would be affected. They would not have a stable mind. You can imagine somebody who is a refugee in a different country. How would you even be at peace? It would definitely affect their education, or girls' education, okay? It affects the economic life and freedom of women. These are some of the areas that these are some of the areas where why we have to be very critical and very, very serious when we talk about the issues of peace. I am more vested in education, so I'm not having a lot of data when it comes to peace and all this, as my sister Beatrice has. But what I know is that definitely health-wise we will be affected. Okay, and even in this situation, there is increase of teenage pregnancy, so many vices against women, so many things that we can talk about. And then I want to take this here. Global estimate published by World Health Organization indicates that that is 35% of women worldwide have experienced either physical or sexual intimate partner violence or in a non-partner sexual violence. Most of these things are from violence that are perpetrated to women, especially in times of war, in times of conflict. Most of it. Because when this conflict happens, people are looking for their own personal gains and satisfaction. So they don't look at the complete well-being of the other person. And women are now, and girls become the targets because they are the ones that they can easily manipulate, easily do anything that they want with. So basically, I can only say that it affects women's safety in general. It affects education, because in times of conflict, who even now that we are all experiencing COVID has put all of us in the room. Who is in school now? Nobody is in school. So it's affecting our girls' education. And there is increase of teenage pregnancy right now, even as we speak in Ghana. So basically, this is what I would say. I know we are running out of time. So let's see.
Try to run. So Daniel, we'll take into consideration your submission and then would put it out there on our social media handles later on. We'll take our final poll.
Teresa, just before the final poll, Daniel, I think also that thank you very much for raising that. When it comes to data, that is also one of the handicaps we have.
Challenges. Yeah.
Yes. So that's also one key area we could research into very well. So thank you for raising that.
Yeah, sure. So I'm launching the final poll. Then, speakers, please vote. What is the best way to raise concerns before, during, and after Ghana's elections? Using peaceful dialogue or using arms and ammunition? Please let's vote, all the participants. What is the best way to raise concerns before, during, and after Ghana's elections? We have 30 seconds to end the poll. All right, ta-da! Poll has ended. Let me share the results. Using peaceful dialogue. Let's clap ourselves. Well done, very well. Means we are learning something today. And so we'll take our final submit. If there are no more contributions from the participants, we'll take our final submissions from Rita and then Beatrice, and then we round up. So Rita, your final submission.
Okay, so I want to share this here. Like globally, as many as 38% of murders of women are committed by their male partners. And when we look at this in the sense that these males, in times of war, they are having this strong adrenaline flowing through them, and they don't know what, they don't care what else happens.
Yeah.
I want to put this because I want us to see the gravity of conflict. That is how much lives are lost. Please, as we go out there as young people to cast our vote, it is our right, it is our responsibility as well to ensure that we do that and do that diligently and do that with our hearts and knowing that we are going in there to elect someone who would lead us because we are looking for development. So if we are lacking development, we can't bear destroying already the little that we have. So I'll beg and plead with all our young people out there who are listening to us. We've talked a lot today. If you wouldn't pick anything at all from this conversation we've had, please remember Beatrice's word. One Ghana, we are one. I don't speak French. You don't speak French. If anything happens right now, the only place we would go to without having any issue with language is to the sea. Gulf of Guinea. And nobody can survive there. So please, let's make sure that we do the right things and we cast our vote peacefully with love. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rita. So there's a submission from Isaac. Isaac's network was messy, but he sent something, so I'll read it out for the young people. So Isaac says, the youth should be a tool or peace ambassadors to create awareness in their localities, and also to prevent the enemies of the nation from using them as fuel to pockets of violence. So young people, we should come together as peace ambassadors. Even after participating in this webinar, we should go out and then share whatever we have learned on maintaining peace in our communities, in our homes, on social media. Now you can do everything on social media. And then 2, the youth should be seen preaching unity regardless of their political affiliation, and exercise their strength in defending Ghana and not a political party. And so Isaac is saying we should put Ghana first ahead of our political affiliations. Whatever your actions are, whatever you want to do on behalf of a party, ask yourself, is it going to benefit the country? If it is not, then stop it. All right. So the third point is that the youth should be the watchdogs of their community, to be sensitive to issues that may result in violence and report to the appropriate authority. And that's very crucial. Sometimes we have nobody watching for us, but as young people, sometimes you'll be working in a community, you hear people talking about something that they are planning in a negative way. You should constantly look out for those things and then report to the police, to the security personnel, to the district assemblies, to the appropriate quarters. And then young people, we should be peace ambassadors. We should put our country before our political parties, and we should serve as watchdogs. Thank you so much, Isaac. So that's Isaac's final submission. We'll take Beatrice's final submission.
Thank you so much, Teresa. Okay, so I have just 3 things that I'm going to say. One is that as young people, we constitute, if you look at the demographics of Ghana, we constitute the majority. That we are a very youthful population, so we should resort to the use of dialogue. In all our grievances, let's resort to dialogue instead of arms. Okay. Let's resort more to dialogue instead of using arms and violence. 2, let's resort and pledge not to be used by politicians to foment trouble. Let's pledge and resort to the fact that we're not going to allow politicians to use us to foment any sort of violence or trouble, and also that we will not allow ourselves to be bought. We will not allow ourselves to be bought, because once you are bought with money, or once you are bought, during this electoral process, remember that you don't have anything called integrity. And then also, let's not forget that we have one Ghana. So as young people, we are the future leaders of Mother Ghana. So if we destroy our country called Ghana, we don't have anywhere to be leaders. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Beatrice. And so before we end, I want all of us to say, we can unmute ourselves and say, I pledge to commit to peace before, during, and after Ghana's elections. So let's unmute our mics and say it together. We are all peace ambassadors now. All right. So one, pardon me.
On the count of 3, right?
Yes. So let me say it before then we know what to say. So I pledge to commit to peace. What did I say? I pledge to commit to peace before, during, and after Ghana's general elections. So 1, 2, 3. I pledge to commit to peace before, during, and after Ghana's general elections. Thank you so much, everybody. This has been a very educative and insightful discussion. It has also been eye-opening. We've learned many new things that would continue to practice peace. It's actually very important. We have nowhere to go. Like she says, most of us don't even speak French. We don't, so where are we going to go if we don't have Ghana? So we have a role to play as young people, as women, as men, as boys, as girls, to ensure that peace is maintained before, during, and after the elections. This webinar was brought to you by SheDreams Africa in collaboration with Landmark Security. Please, after this webinar, tweet about what you have learned, tag SheDreams Africa, tag Landmark Security, and then use the hashtags SheDreams Africa, SheDreams Voices, Landmark Security. We're so grateful you were able to join us. Hello. Yes, Beatrice. And then use One Ghana. Yes, a hashtag One Ghana. And then tag us. My name is Teresa Anefi, co-founder for SheDreams Africa. It's been great having all of you online. Can we please turn on our videos and then somebody take a screenshot and we end the webinar. Yeah. So let's turn on our videos and say hello to each other. We are done. So we can see you. Hey,
Yay.
my friend, I can't see you. All right,
Nice.
yeah. Hi. Princess, Tilly, Irene, Prince, Anaik, Joe. Thank you so much for joining. And
Thank
we
you.
also streamed live on Facebook, so we can actually go and then revisit the link at the SheDreams Africa Facebook page. Yeah. Thank you so much. We'll meet again as peace ambassadors. Yeah. Thank you.